My name's Maven, I'm a former WWE wrestler, and today we're gonna be answering wrestling questions from Twitter. Why do wrestlers have no bulge? They taping it down or something? They're not taping it down, I think. I don't know how to say this the right way, so I'm just gonna say it. The most gifted wrestler, and by gifted, I mean from the man upstairs, the most gifted wrestler I can ever remember was Shelton Benjamin. I don't remember him walking around with tape or anything special. When you're in the ring, I don't care what's going on around. The last thing on earth you're worried about is arousal. It's the furthest thing from your mind. Obviously, if you're gifted and you might need help, you might perfect a little bit of a shimmy over, and you might, like some people, when you're a man and you're getting a custom-made suit, some tailors might ask, do you dress to the left or do you dress to the right? What they're asking is, do you hang your junk to the left or do you hang your junk to the right? Might be something you've never thought about, but you do it the same way every time, guaranteed. Same with your wrestling trunks. If you have to tape that thing down, you got issues that I never had, so I've never seen one person tape it down. Still, not a bad question. Next question, why do wrestlers even care about admitting to PEDs or performance-enhancing drugs? They ain't athletes. You had me until you had to throw that little extra diss in at the end of they ain't athletes. To perform in the ring takes athletic endeavor. So, I mean, just to shit on it and say they ain't athletes, but that's not your original question. Why do they even care about admitting to taking performance-enhancing drugs? I don't know. I can't answer for everyone. I can only answer for myself, and I've never understood. Am I ashamed of my PED use? I'm not. I'm just not. I'm sorry if you're looking for someone to be ashamed of it, and you're upset that I'm not. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It's what I had to do. It's what I thought was the best for my career at the time. The reason why I think steroid use was so prevalent in wrestling is because of the travel schedule. The moment you throw plane rides and cars and hotels and everything in the mix, and especially dieting, eating while on the road is impossible. And I don't want to be the asshole in Denny's trying to have the cook in the back who could care less about my dietary goals, having to tell him to go light on the oil when you're making my egg white omelet. He don't give a shit. Dieting on the road is difficult, and I think it's just easier. It's easier to take something that's gonna give you a little bit of an edge. And maybe they don't want to admit it because of the legality reasoning behind it. I mean, obviously steroids is illegal, but even when I was getting stuff mailed to my house, I wasn't worried about it. Why? Because I had a doctor's prescription for everything that was getting mailed to my front door. The last thing I was ever worried about was the legality. Could have been an issue, I guess, if I was getting them on the black market, but I just wasn't. So, why do wrestlers born in the 70s, I was born in the 70s, have to be such performative pussies about disliking certain things that happen in wrestling? I just think it's human nature to think that the era you're a part of is the end-all be-all best of anything. I think things just have to evolve, and I think people have to adapt or die. Obviously, it's more of a television product now. Everything's geared towards television and ad sales, everything. And 20, 30, 40 years ago, it just wasn't. It was geared more towards the performance. I look at the product now and I think, oh man, we wouldn't have done that in our time, or maybe. But I also look at it and think the opposite. I think, holy cow, these guys are so athletic these days. They're doing stuff I would have never thought about doing. I just recognize also that they have different parameters, different instructions, and different goals when they go out to perform. Why do wrestlers stop everything they're doing when someone else's music hits? You've been watching a wrestling match and action will be taking place, and then if they're gonna have a run-in or something and you hear the glass break, you see the wrestler go from hitting and look up and stop. Why? Why do they do that? Because it's a show, because they're trying to elicit a reaction from you. They're trying to get you as excited as they can be for that person being in the arena. And it's a magic trick. They're trying to take your attention away from, don't look in the right hand over here, look in my left hand over here. Well, music hitting, that's all that's happening. It's taking your attention from one area, focusing it on another area, just to continue telling a story. All in all though, great question. So what do WWE wrestlers do when it's a commercial break? They just stop wrestling? No, the action in the ring is still taking place for the house or for the audience. Now, they're not going to hit any big high spots. They're not going to do anything that's going to tell too much of a story, but they're not just going to stop wrestling. Why? Because everybody in that ring has one of these, and everybody in that ring would start recording, and then it would be on every social media platform if they did just stop wrestling. And that doesn't help anybody. If anything, they might grab a rest hold, they might work, take it down, actually talk over, figure out the rest of the match, talk over the rest of the spots that they have to hit. Refs might tell them how much of a cue. Hey, remember, you got 5 more minutes. You have this, you have that. And it's just almost a place to collect yourself or get your bearings. Great question though. What do WWE wrestlers use as face paint? It never smudges. Well, to the contrary, it indeed does smudge. And if you see it and it hasn't smudged, it's probably just because they haven't made contact with anyone's body or the mat or anything yet. I worked with Jeff Hardy one night, and it was when he was wearing green face paint. And at the end of the match, I had that shit all over me. It was on my arms. It was everywhere. I never painted my face, thank the Lord. But I would see guys backstage painting their face, and I don't think they used anything special. I don't think it was a special, type of paint that they used. I mean, for the most part, I remember watching Boogeyman, take hours to get his face that meticulously done the way he did. And I remember watching him dip his brush in it, and it looked like I was back in Mrs. Duke's 9th grade art class when I was in school. But I promise you, it indeed will smudge. Good question though. Do wrestlers have acting coaches, or do they just be winging it? I know for a fact that most guys are winging it, indeed, and most guys aren't going to take the time and the added expense to get an acting coach. But then you have some guys like Batista. Batista, even back in and I'm talking 2004, 2005 time, once he was looking to just be a better performer, I know he started reaching out to acting coaches, and I know he was asking, for help from people that do it as a profession. That's not the norm though. Most guys are winging it. Keep in mind, the WWE, they're not providing or paying for acting coaches. We're not getting there and then setting us up in a room and saying, okay, you're going to be taking lessons from Anton here, who performed in Cats off Broadway. Not happening. But every now and then you have your Batistas. I'm assuming Rock has had coaching, and Austin, I'm assuming he's had coaching, but I'm assuming that coaching is for the big screen and not the square circle. How come wrestlers don't qualify for SAG benefits? They are performers or actors. Now, SAG is Screen Actors Guild, so they're asking why wrestlers don't qualify for that union. They will if they are doing something outside of wrestling. Then they can be in the actors union outside of that. As for performers and being in the union while wrestling, just something that just never happened. It's something that people have talked about for years, and even Jesse Ventura tried to get a union for professional wrestlers. Just nothing ever came of it. I wish wrestlers were in a union. I wish wrestlers could qualify for SAG, mainly because then they would get health insurance that extend beyond what happens to you in the ring. Don't know how it is now, but during my day, Only health insurance I had was what happened in the ring. I don't know why a wrestlers union never materialized. I tend to believe it had something to do with the McMahons. And now that what has happened with Vince, who knows? It might be something that wrestlers want to circle back around. It's definitely something that I think is needed and long overdue. How come wrestlers die so early in their career, or they don't make it past a certain age? That is a tough question, and it's obviously tough because it's something that the older I get, it's something that, I have to deal with front and center. There were years that I would wake up and take pills to get me going. I would take steroids to build my body up. I would take painkillers to ease the pain. I would drink alcohol, and then I would take sleeping pills to go to sleep. Remember, our bodies, they're not forever, and the more you damage something in hopes of a certain look or being able to perform a certain way, or with a desire to be able to actually get some sleep. Hell, I remember I used to get on a 3-hour plane ride, and I'd take 3 Ambien for a 3-hour plane ride. Why? Because that was 3 solid hours that I was going to be able to sleep, and it was worth it, and I wanted to fall asleep as soon as that plane took off. I truly think that when the wellness policy came about, I think that helped. I think that, I really do believe that's gonna make a difference. Why do people run the ropes? Why don't they just stop? Easy answer, momentum. When someone shoots you off, the ropes are a couple feet away, of course you're gonna hit them. And of course that momentum is gonna send you back in their direction. Why do wrestlers hit the ropes? Because it's a show. For the majesty of the wrestling ring, nothing takes the place of hitting the ropes. And when you get guys that can hit the ropes and crisscross each other and can, do aerial stunts with it, small feats of athleticism like that is why wrestlers hit the ropes. What is a WWE house show? You've probably heard the phrase house show or live event, and all that is a show for the house. And by house, I mean the people that paid attendance. It's not a televised show. It's not the normal Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-view that you see on your television week to week. A house show is just what it says, a show just for the house. And most live events, most house shows, you don't have the pageantry, you don't have the big trons, you don't have all the glitz and glam. It's just a basic wrestling show. And for wrestling fans, a lot of them appreciate that way more because you're not having to break for commercials. You're not having to break for the television. You're not having to deal with just all the things that have to be dealt with during a taping or an airing. It was great for us wrestlers because the shows were more low-key, meaning we were able to go out and work on stuff. We were able to go out and maybe try something that we would never try on a television night. I always heard that the way that The Rock developed the people's elbow was indeed at house shows. He was trying to pop or make the boys in the back laugh, and he did the people's elbow, and the fans loved it. The fans reacted. And once the fans react to something, then you know you're on to something. And then you transition that to television. That's exactly what house shows are for. Great question. Why don't wrestlers stay retired when they say they're retiring? The allure of stardom, the constant chasing of dollars, the lust for fame. And man, it's an elusive thing. And once you have it, you realize how fleeting it is. And once you get and you're on top, you don't want to let that go. When you are known as Maven the wrestler and then that gets taken away from you, it's tough. It's a hard pill to swallow. But then you realize you're always gonna be in people's eyes what you were. You might not be at the level that they once saw you at or revered you at, and obviously there's always going to be someone to come and replace you. But it's just tough. And we all want to see the best version of ourselves, and we all want to extend that version as long as we can. Wrestlers are no different. Next question, how much money do WWE wrestlers spend on gear? Personally, I would wear the easiest gear known to man. I would wear just the trunks. And those trunks would run me, I would say about $125 to $150 just for those simple trunks. Now, that was for that. A pair of wrestling boots can run you several $100s, and I mean, they have to be sized for you. They have to make sure they fit your feet, and they're pretty pricey. And once you get a good pair of wrestling boots, every, I would say 8 months, I would have to get my boots resoled, meaning I had to have a person in my town, a cobbler, a shoe repair guy, who I trusted that when I came off the road, I could give my boots to, and I knew he was going to have them 1, maybe 2 days at the most, and have them back in my hands. So I wasn't going to have to go to my old boots on my next loop. So once you buy your gear, you're still gonna constantly be upgrading your gear. You're constantly going to be taking care and maintaining your boots. Some guys would have extremely elaborate and expensive gear. I know Flair's robes, some of those robes were in the thousands, and some guys would constantly be painting their face or wearing masks, and those masks aren't cheap. And over time, you're trying to evolve. So the more you evolve, that's just the more money coming out of your pocket. I would spend about $1,000 a year on my gear, but I got off easy. I know some guys were spending 5, 6, 10 times that amount. How come WWE wrestlers always go through the Spanish announce table? It's a running joke. Everybody knows that during a pay-per-view or one of the big shows, action's always gonna spill to the outside. There's always gonna be a big bump. And the Spanish announce table is always going to be the first thing that is taken out. I remember watching guys get prepared for pay-per-view days, and we'd get together and we'd be in the ring and going over spots, and then you knew it was a pay-per-view once they had the 2 announce tables up. And I would see guys working on their stuff, and it was even a joke then. Guys would, hey, we got to go through a table. It's going to be the Spanish announce table first. So I think it's one of the things that started off as a joke and just became tradition. And it still is to this day. How many hours do WWE wrestlers have for PTO, paid time off? Well, easy answer for that is this many. We're not a 40-hour-a-week job. We're not punching a clock. We're not making sure if we stay a little bit late for work, we're getting paid overtime for it. You're not asking for any paid time off. You're a performer. And the more that you're performing, the more money you're making. We're in a business where you, the fans, decide who the stars are. And you don't become a star with paid time off. You don't become a star by not being in front of the fans. Now, if you are on the road and you get injured, that's what we would have our downside guarantee for. We would be at home healing an injury, still collecting a check. But remember, while you're at home, these people, out of sight, out of mind, if they're not seeing you, your whole life revolves around that day you return. And also during my time, we just made more money when we were in the ring, when we were on the road. Our downside guarantees just didn't pay as much as our pay sheets did. So pay time off, none of us wanted it. Do WWE wrestlers get imposter syndrome? Do some guys feel like they don't belong? And I have to be honest with you, I probably had imposter syndrome my entire time I was in the WWE. There was never a day that I walked into that locker room and didn't have that little bit in the back of my mind thinking, man, I don't know if I belong in here. I've talked to other guys who I'd be in the car with, and we were big silly kids, and we just didn't feel like we were at the top of our we didn't feel like we were at the top of our profession, but we were. I think everybody, when you get to a specific level, has a little bit of imposter syndrome. That's just self-doubt creeping in. WWE wrestlers are certainly no different. Do WWE wrestlers get bodyguards? Wrestlers don't have bodyguards with them full-time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We really don't need it, but the bigger of a star you become, the more you do need to just be careful when you leave an arena. Maybe duck out the side, or maybe do a little bit of misdirection. Randy Orton's leaving over here, when in fact we parked over on this side away from everyone, and we're already 10 minutes down the road. Because sometimes you never know. There might be that one fan that for whatever reason just wants to test you that night. I've seen it happen, and it's one of the ugly parts of just fame in general. The bigger issue for wrestlers are just having handlers, or if we're doing an event, if we're doing a signing or something, just having someone that can keep the line moving, can keep fans from just loitering, for a lack of a better term. WWE makes sure they keep people from doing that, and they make sure that they usher you into places and out of places. But having a 24-hour protection, just not gonna happen. How come pro wrestlers get their freak on inside the ring and go calm and cool, collected outside the ring? That's the job. The job is being bigger than life. I remember Al Snow during training would say, do everything big so the person up in the last row can see you. If you're going to throw a punch, don't throw it like this, throw it like this to make sure they see. Everything in wrestling has to be bigger. You don't want to see that when the guy's outside the ring, when they're walking into Outback Steakhouse. They're of course not gonna act like that. They're gonna act like a regular person. You realize if you see Wicked, there's not really a green witch walking around. Same with wrestling. It's performative art, and when they leave the ring, they go back to being just regular people. Are wrestlers allowed to improvise in terms of when to end a match on live TV? And the simple answer is not only no, but heck no. If we improvise in the phrase of ending a match or when to end a match on live TV, we're sending everyone scrambling. We're sending the people in the truck scrambling. We're sending the people backstage scrambling. We're sending the people that are coming up after us who might not be 100% ready scrambling. Remember, there might be a live pre-tape after your match, and if they're not ready to go live and you just decide you want to end the match, what are they going to go to? You're just asking for a world of trouble if you go off the cuff and end a match early. I'm not saying it's never happened, and I'm not saying we're not allowed to go off the cuff. Of course, accidents do happen. Occasionally, injuries will happen, or occasionally something will go awry. But you do everything in your power to go by the book. The last thing you want is to make anyone else's job harder, because the more you make someone else's job difficult, the easier it might be to tell you to hit the road. Are wrestlers allowed to pick what they wear to the ring, or does someone pick it for them? For the most part, they're gonna give you creative freedom. They're gonna let you put your outfits or put your gimmick together the way you see fit, the way you see yourselves. But occasionally they're going to have ideas for you. Occasionally they're going to want you to go in a specific direction. I know when they came up with the Simon Dean gimmick, Simon had as much emphasis on coming up with that gimmick, but it was a collaborative effort. They were, hey, add this to it as well. I wore black for years, and then when I turned heel or became a bad guy, I then started wearing colors. I never had to get approval for whatever color I was gonna wear each and every night, even on pay-per-views. But if they have a specific gimmick, if they have a specific look, a specific character, you're gonna listen to whatever they suggest. Are wrestlers allowed to get brand deals? During my time, we were not. I think now maybe things are different, but that also could have been because during my time we just didn't have managers, we didn't have agents, we had ourselves and we had the company and we were listening to what the company said. Now, granted, we were 1099s or independent contractors, but still, we weren't allowed to have management representing us that were working in our best interest, trying to get us such brand deals. I know I would have loved to have been able to have some brand deals back during my time. Watching wrestling and wondered, what do wrestlers do if they have to pee? I would always make sure that before I would go up the steps to gorilla position or the place where wrestlers stand before their music hits and they go out, the last stop I always made was the bathroom. I was always stopping to take care of that problem. Didn't matter. The moment I saw the curtain, the only thing separating me from thousands of people and live TV cameras, nerves took over. It just was going to happen. I was going to get nervous. The good thing about it is the moment I went through that curtain, everything went away. I never actually felt like I still had to pee once I got out to the ring. And for the most part, guys, I think feel pretty much the same way. I think most guys have a big bottle of nerves, and a bottle of nerves that goes away the moment you're actually performing. You just get into the momentum of the match and you forget about all those trivial things. And the moment you get backstage, then you start living your life again. But still, good question. Do wrestlers get free Starbucks? Well, not Starbucks, but there are special perks we get for being a WWE wrestler. And to find out what those are, click the link on screen.